Frank Reich was fired about 90 minutes ago as head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Not entirely surprising. His team had only 121 yards of total offense yesterday in a loss to the Patriots. That was the worst performance by a Colts team in 25 years. They were 0 for 14 on third down. But wait, there's more. Jeff Saturday is the new interim head coach. The same Sean O'Hara doppelganger who's in the Colts Ring of Honor, who is on ESPN as an analyst, does a fine job. That Jeff Saturday. Jeff Saturday, former head coach at, hi there, Ian and Tom and Mike Giardi, who was at the game, who was 20-16 in 3 seasons at Hebron Christian Academy, a school of around 1,100 students in suburban Atlanta. Man, I don't know where we start. Tom, go for it.
Well, let's start with the firing of Frank Reich, something that seemed to become an increasing possibility in recent weeks here as Reich was plainly grappling with how to fix a team that on paper looked like they should be a contender this year and had played absolutely nothing like it. He benched Matt Ryan a couple of weeks ago, turned things over to Sam Ehlinger, who had not thrown an NFL pass. Offense continued to struggle. He fired the offensive coordinator, Marcus Brady. That also did not revive things, and of course they put on that terrible performance yesterday against the Patriots. Just last August of 2021, Frank Reich, along with general manager Chris Ballard, were signed to contract extensions through the 2026 season. At that point, Reich had been to the playoffs twice in 3 years with the Colts. Despite that revolving door of quarterbacks, it continued this year from last year with Carson Wentz, and then to Matt Ryan, and then to Sam Ehlinger. Nothing fixed the offense, nothing fixed this team, and so they make a dramatic move here, including another dramatic move by hiring Jeff Saturday, who is in the team's Ring of Honor. He was a part of the Super Bowl championship team. He made 6 Pro Bowls, but only has limited coaching experience at the high school level. And by doing that, the Colts bypass former head coaches on their staff, Gus Bradley and John Fox. You have Bubba Ventrone, who's a rising head coaching candidate, will probably get a job someplace here in the coming years. And you go to a guy whose resume looks a lot like the one that Josh McCown had when the Texans were heavily criticized for interviewing him back in January. The Colts, Ian, take the next step by actually hiring someone who's never coached in college, never coached in the NFL. Seems fairly apparent that Jim Irsay has taken the reins of this operation at this point, and he's hoping some outside-the-box thinking might yield some outside-the-box answers for a team that needs him.
Imagine being a very qualified minority candidate and seeing Jeff Saturday hired as interim coach with literally no experience except being a high school coach in Georgia. I mean, it's mind-boggling, and it's, you know, if there's frustration around the league from really qualified assistants, coordinators, especially those who are minorities, with this, certainly all of that is understandable, and no doubt we are going to be hearing more about that, as we should, over the next couple weeks, regardless of what happens with the Colts hiring Jeff Saturday as the interim coach. But let's get back to what you were talking about, Tom, about the firing of Frank Reich. I mean, he accelerated this. I mean, it was a situation where he was considered safe by owner Jim Irsay just several weeks ago, and then there was the benching of Matt Ryan, the firing of Marcus Brady, their offensive coordinator. And if you do that quickly enough, and you do it in successive weeks, and the offense and everything else looks bad, there is literally no one left to blame despite a contract extension. Jim Irsay deciding enough was enough, and Frank Reich was fired.
Okay, I have a million more questions, but let's get to Giardi here, because, Mike, you were at this game yesterday, and it truly is hard to put into words how one-sided it was and how poorly the Colts did play offensively. There were 8 games in the early window. There were 2 blowouts, right? The Colts game and then the Panthers game. The other 6 games all kind of came down to the wire, and I think we all just didn't pay attention to how they couldn't get across midfield nor get a first down.
They averaged 2 yards per play yesterday. And as you mentioned, their lowest offensive total since 1997. That was the year before they drafted Peyton Manning in the first round and changed that franchise's course over the next decade or so. But if you look at Frank Reich, in dismissing, well, at first in making the move off Matt Ryan, which I think may be motivated by money as much as anything, because he's due about $30 million in March if, in fact, he can't pass his physical. Instead, you owe him 12.5 if he does pass his physical, and then you can walk away from him if you so choose. So I think that's an interesting part of this. But then firing Marcus Brady last week, and he put this all on himself. He said, I was brought here to coach the offense and to turn this offense into something. And quite frankly, it had been pretty good for the last 4 years. But this year, no points on drives in the first drive of the game, which is something that's never happened. I mean, it's pretty hard to do, quite frankly, when you think about it. 0 for 14 in third downs yesterday, and just seemingly there were no answers. And then turning to Sam Ehlinger, inexperienced guy, didn't light it up at Texas. I know there was some positive buzz about him during the course of the offseason and during preseason, but it's a tall task to ask that player to fix this offense when, in particular, the offensive line is broken in front of him. Frank Reich touted Chris Strasser, their offensive line coach. He said, no, I believe in him. They gave up 9 sacks yesterday, and they are on, I think, their 6 different offensive line combination here in the first 9 weeks, and they've just underperformed dramatically. So Frank Reich was the next one to fall here. And then I start to wonder about Chris Ballard and his future going forward.
Yeah, and that is unknown. There will be a press conference with Jim Irsay a little bit later here, and he'll be certainly asked these questions. Let me ask you this, though, Tom. Number one, did Frank Reich bench Matt Ryan, or did Jim Irsay bench Matt Ryan? And might Matt Ryan come back?
Certainly everything is on the table at this point, Andrew, in terms of potential changes to try to fix a struggling team. What we do know is that Frank Reich, Chris Ballard, and Jim Irsay met the night before Matt Ryan was benched and Sam Ehlinger was placed into the lineup. Now, of course, Matt Ryan would not have been able to play immediately anyway because of that shoulder injury that he has. He was ruled out each of the past 2 weeks. We've not gotten a recent update in terms of how close he would even be to playing. But remember, Frank Reich also said that it was going to be Sam Ehlinger for the rest of the 2022 season, which in hindsight seemed like an odd thing to do with a player who had, at that point, never thrown an NFL pass. Then again, this is the same franchise that just named someone who has never coached a college or professional game, the interim head coach for the rest of the season. It is a, to say the least, bizarre sequence of events for a franchise that has had a lot of bizarre things happen over the past 5 years or so, going back to Andrew Luck's retirement and the cycle of changes to try to replace him, from Jacoby Brissett to Phillip Rivers and, of course, to Matt Ryan as well. They've not been able to get out of that cycle. They've not been able to be a good offensive team. They've had other challenges this season. Jonathan Taylor's missed a bunch of time. Shaq Leonard has missed a bunch of time. So it's your best player on offense and defense that haven't been out there. Does Jeff Saturday, the former offensive lineman, have the answers for that? We are about to find out.
There's going to be a lot of snark here. For the record, I think everyone likes Jeff Saturday as a person. This is just an odd move, as we all agree. Technically, the Colts are still only a game and a half out of first in the AFC South after the Titans lost. We'll get to that in a second. And in just this weird cosmic convergence here, the Colts this week play in Vegas against Josh McDaniels, the coach who spurned Jim Irsay and Chris Ballard, and then Frank Reich got the job, and the coach about whom his owner said last week he's safe, as Frank Reich heard the same thing last week from Jim Irsay. Time is a flat circle.